Hello, time for a Man in Gray book review. Today's book is How to Stop a Conspiracy, An Ancient Guide to Saving a Republic by Sallust, translated from Latin and with an introduction by Josiah Osgood. It was published by Princeton University Press in 2022, and it's 240 pages. This book is part of the Ancient Ancient Wisdom for Modern Readers series by Princeton University Press. And it's a translation of the Cataline War by the ancient Roman historian Sallust, who was the oldest Roman historian whose works we still have. In 63 BC, the Roman senator Cataline plotted a conspiracy to overthrow the Roman Republic and seize Rome by force. Cataline was a Roman senator from a distinguished family, but he was in financial straits because he was a gambler. He built elaborate houses and was throwing parties all the time, spending a lot of money that he couldn't afford to spend. And so he decided to run for consul, the highest office in Rome. And but he was disqualified from running because he was accused of political corruption and embezzlement. Now, later, he was acquitted of those charges and then ran a second time for consul, but he lost to Marcus Cicero, the lawyer and renowned as the greatest orator in Rome. So by this point, Cataline was heavily in debt and needed to do something to get out of debt. And he was also seriously concerned with the fate of the poor in Rome. By this point in the Roman Republic, the economy was in terrible straits. There was high unemployment and a lot of high taxes. So the ordinary people were furious that there weren't enough jobs. There were sporadic food shortages as well, high taxes, high unemployment, food shortages. And under the consulship of Sulla, a military leader, Sulla charged various people with conspiracies against the Republic and had them either killed or exiled and then seized their property. And then he turned their property over to his soldiers, enriching his soldiers so he could guarantee their loyalty. And so there was a lot of upset over the way Sulla's tactics were. A lot of these Roman senators had their property taken away from them. They were still senators, but could no longer had any money because Sulla had seized their property. So Cataline saw a chance here to form a coalition between the disaffected poor who were upset over taxes and debts and so forth, and those aristocrats whose property had been taken away from them. And so he carefully sought out various senators in the Roman Senate who he thought would be sympathetic to his cause, and they hatched an elaborate plan. They were going to set fires throughout Rome to create a distraction. Then they were going to send hit squads out to kill Cicero and other members of the Roman government, the establishment. And then Cataline would leave Rome and collect an army from outside of Rome and then come in and bring order from the chaos and put out the fires and reestablish everything. And Cataline promised to redistribute wealth to his supporters and forgive debt, cancel all the debt that a lot of these people were under. So he gathered a number of senators to his side. However, the plan, his conspiracy plans, got out, and word got back to Cicero. And so Cicero carefully started up countermeasures to stop this conspiracy. He gathered evidence against all these Roman senators, and when the time was right, he called for a meeting of the full Roman Senate, where he shocked everyone by presenting the case against these conspirators. He laid out all the evidence that he had, and then a debate broke out within the Senate about what to do with these traitorous Roman senators. Julius Caesar argued that if you executed them, that you would make martyrs out of them, and it would actually increase support for their cause. Caesar wanted to lock up these people and seize their property. But Cato argued the opposite. Cato argued that allowing these people, these traitors, to be alive was to threaten the Republic, because if they escaped, they would go out and gather an army and attack Rome. So that we had to kill these people. We had to execute these people immediately without trial to send a message that any kind of threat to Rome would be crushed. And it was Cato who won the day. So all these conspirators were hanged immediately without trial. While this was going on, Cataline had fled to what is now the border of northern Italy and France, where he gathered together an army, and of course he promised these soldiers loot, and he promised them high government positions after the war was over and when he was in power. But when word got out that the conspiracy had been unveiled in Rome, and that many of the Roman leaders in the Senate who were supporting this had been executed, and that Rome was building an army to come after him, many of these people went AWOL, or they switched sides and joined the Roman Republic. So his army shrunk. Cataline's army shrunk fairly quickly. Eventually, the Roman army reaches this point, and there's a big battle, and Cataline is killed in battle, and that ended the Cataline revolt, at least for a few years. Now, and saved the Republic for a few years. Now, ironically, a few years later, Julius Caesar used essentially the same plan to overthrow the Roman Republic. He marched his army into Rome and seized power. He didn't do mass executions, though. He pardoned his opponents, just like he had argued in the Cataline conspiracy. And it was some of these very people who he had pardoned, like Crassus and Brutus, who later assassinated him on the famous Ides of March. Right? So maybe Caesar should have taken Cato's warnings to heart. Now, the Roman historian Sallust wrote a short account of this Cataline conspiracy, and he called it the Cataline War. And it was one of two of his works that have survived intact through all these centuries, along with one other work that was in fragments. And the Cataline War had a huge impact on people during the Renaissance and the early modern era. And particularly, the founding fathers of the United States were very, very concerned about a possible military overthrow of the United States democracy. When they wrote the Constitution, they were careful to limit powers of the presidency. They didn't want a president to become a military dictator and seize power and rule as a dictator. And of course, that's one of the reasons that George Washington was unanimously elected president. For all of his limitations as a military leader, he was devoted to the idea of civilian control of the military. Of course, that's something that's been drilled into every officer when they go through officer training, is that the military is controlled by civilians, and the military has no role in politics. So the Cataline War had a huge impact on the founding of the United States. In the introduction to this book, the translator, Josiah Osgood, argues that there are parallels between the Cataline conspiracy and the January 6th, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, where disaffected MAGA supporters of Donald Trump tried to stop the formal election of Joe Biden by physically attacking the Capitol and trying to execute members of Congress. Now, whether you agree with that parallel or not, it's certainly something to think about. And the fact that the Cataline conspiracy occurred over 2 millennia ago still has echoes in the modern world. The book is recommended for anyone who's interested in Roman history, particularly the Roman Republic era. The translation's very easy to read. And if you do speak Latin or read Latin or know a little bit of Latin, it's bilingual. The original, Sallust's original Latin is on one side, and Osgood's English translation is on the other. So even though the book is 240 pages, it's actually much shorter than that, because almost half the book is in Latin. The book is How to Stop a Conspiracy. The author is Sallust. The translator is Josiah Osgood. This has been another Man in Great Book Review. Thanks for watching.